And they don't have the latitude to, and they're all, it used to be they were basically small businessmen. They were independent operators, and they no longer are. Over 70% of all physicians work for one of these mega hospital systems. They don't have the luxury of independent thought and independent speech.
Yeah, so they are another, I guess, they are victims of this rising trend in global fascism. And again, using this precise definition, I would say, to try and explain the arrow of causality as I understand it, is, again, you have the central bank at the heart of every state. It's an organization that can never not produce a profit. It's perpetual profit. It then uses that centralization of wealth really to start acquiring more of the corporate sector. So I think that's the merger that takes place between state and corporate interests, is that the fiat currency spigot is used to buy up a lot of private industry over time. And this is the infection we're describing, this blurring of public, private, everything. And as you point out in your book too, you said the World Economic Forum even defines itself as the International Organization for Public-Private Cooperation, which, as you say, which is a really carefully wordsmithed way of saying that the World Economic Forum is a centralized trade organization for promoting international corporatism. So it's very out in the open, right? There's not a lot hidden here. That this is fascism
it's almost hidden in plain view.
Yeah, hidden in plain view. And we've seen this before. Even the definition that you gave from Mussolini, right? We've seen the historical consequences of fascism on the world stage, on the geopolitical stage. Yet here we are again, right? We have not learned the lessons of history.
I think that as I try to process this like you are, for me, I'm a low-level person in the economic ladder of the world, but I'm trying to make sense of it. And what I see is that these people that populate these largest of large corporations and come together in Davos, the phrase Davos man, they have attained their positions of wealth and power through monopolistic practices. They truly believe that monopoly works. It works for them, right? It's worked really good for them to have monopolistic business practices. Of course, system-wide, it destroys innovation. It destroys efficiency. Monopolistic practices are the anathema of capitalism, right? Yes. They are the enemy of capitalism. But this is a collection of people that have won through monopolistic practices. And I often refer to Mr. Gates. Now, I've been reprimanded that at one point in his life, he was actually a good coder, I've been told. So I'll take that for granted. But I think what he is an enormously skilled monopolist. And I refer that he kind of got his hand spanked over the browser, as you'll recall. And almost immediately he pivoted to moving in ways that I assert represent application of monopolistic practices to world health. He has come to dominate and distort world health because he is a monopolist. That is how he thinks. It's how he's wired.
Right.
And I think that's true with all these people. So they truly believe, based on their experience, their life experience, centralized governance, monopolies are good things. I think they truly believe it. I think they believe that the world would be a better place if we had less organizational diversity, if we were more centralized, if the world was logically broken up into a small number of geographic clustered political entities, all governed by one super entity. I think they think that would be the most efficient. And you probably recall in some of the other chapters, I speak about utilitarianism and the fusion of utilitarianism and Marxism, the idea that the world can be reduced to a spreadsheet if we only have enough data.
Right.
And once so reduced, it can be optimized. I think this is the logic that is driving the need for digital identities and for collection of massive amounts of data so that it can apply their artificial intelligence algorithms or machine learning algorithms or deep learning algorithms, where you're in that spectrum. I think that they truly believe that if they only had enough data, they could maximize the greatest benefit for the greatest number. And the only thing standing between that, because of the fourth industrial revolution, the rise of machine learning, the only thing standing between that nirvana and the present is being able to identify every single one of us and all of our economic activities and controlling and optimizing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I mean, maybe this perhaps runs that deep where they just still have this Newtonian worldview that we live in this billiard ball universe and that human beings are just little pieces to be moved around on this game board. But it betrays this disbelief in self-organization. Like we see animals self-organize, right? They don't need to be ruled to live in herds and whatnot. They organize themselves. And this has also been called the fatal deceit, where this idea that people need to be ruled or people need to be managed, people need to be told what to do to have a functioning society. Like this whole illusion of the necessity of authority, I think, is something that it's almost implicit in a lot of our mental frameworks because it's been the norm throughout history, but there's no rational basis for it other than there's a desire for some human beings to be in power over others. There's a desire for relative power.
So I'm going to pull in another thread that's in the book, which is the logic of Matthias Desmet and mass formation. Matthias makes the point that the vast majority of people want to be governed. This gives rise to the meme, govern me harder, daddy. Right? Yeah, you get it.
Right. Yeah.
And we see that in action. We see that in medicine. This is one of the first lessons I was taught when I was going into my clinical training, is that as somebody who approaches the world as a scientist and thinks that everybody else wants to know all the facts so they can make their own decisions, I thought, well, this is the way everybody is. But they're not. Most patients want to be told what to do. They don't want to make their own decisions. And I think a strong case can be made that maybe only 10% of the population really want to be free. And the problem is, I both live in that 10%, and probably most of your podcast listeners live in that 10% of people that want to be self-actualized, free persons. We can, guys like you and me, if we were put in the lockup, we would go crazy and commit suicide eventually, probably, or we'd have to, dive into the library and read the books or find some mental state. But we're not wired to have a boss. I mean, if you were wired to have a boss, you probably wouldn't be living in Hawaii doing podcasts. You'd be working for Klaus Schwab or BlackRock, like Ed used to work for. That's the problem with that thesis. Is there is an intrinsic bias in thinking that the rest of the world, most people value that which we value. Right. And I think that's probably not true. Most people just want to be told what to do.